The recycled air of Omega 9 station carried a familiar mix of metal, ozone, and cheap synthetic coffee as Lucas Kowalski tightened the final bolt on the malfunctioning maintenance droid. His workshop, nestled in the lower engineering deck of the station, served as a refuge from the chaos of the bustling spaceport above. "There you go, little guy." Lucas wiped the grease from his hands and activated the droid. Its optical sensors flickered to life with a soft blue glow. "Try moving your left arm now." The droid rotated its appendage smoothly, emitting a series of appreciative beeps. "Don't thank me yet." Lucas glanced at the diagnostic readout on his wrist computer. "Just stay away from the plasma conduits this time. I can't keep rebuilding you from scratch." A crash from the corridor outside startled him. The workshop's reinforced door slid open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing an unexpected sight. Something that didn't belong in his humble workspace. She was tall, her skin the color of twilight, and her hair shimmered like liquid starlight. Her form-fitting attire suggested wealth beyond anything found on this aging station. But it was her eyes, brilliant gold and blazing with royal fury, that truly captivated him. "You." She pointed a slender finger at him. "You mechanic." Lucas straightened, suddenly aware of his oil-stained coveralls. "I'm the chief engineer. My ship requires immediate attention." She strode in as if she owned the place, her movements graceful despite her evident agitation. "The quantum drive is malfunctioning, and I have pressing business on Senna Prime." "Look, you're—" Lucas paused, noting the intricate circlet on her brow. "Princess? There's a proper procedure for requesting repairs. You'll need to file." "I am Princess Laria of House Levier." She produced a crystal flask from somewhere in her outfit and took a long sip. "We don't file paperwork." "Everyone files paperwork on Omega 9. Lucas crossed his arms. "Even visiting royalty. Station regulations are clear about." Suddenly, the princess swayed, the crystal flask slipping from her fingers. Lucas lunged forward, catching her just before she hit the deck plates. The flask shattered, sending an iridescent liquid cascading across the floor. "Hey, are you okay?" His heart raced as she went limp in his arms. Her skin felt fever-hot through the thin fabric of her clothes. Laria's golden eyes fluttered. "The drink! Something's wrong." She clutched at his coveralls. "Get medical." Lucas slapped the emergency comm panel. "Medical emergency in Engineering Workshop 7. I need a team here now." The princess convulsed once, then lay completely still, her rapid pulse the only sign she was alive. "Stay with me, princess." He lowered her gently to the floor, keeping her head elevated. "Help's coming." The station's medical response was impressively swift. Within minutes, the workshop bustled with emergency personnel and what appeared to be the princess's own security detail, tall, armored figures who regarded Lucas with evident suspicion. The medical scanner hummed as it passed over Laria's unconscious form. Dr. Mary Davis, the station's chief medical officer, frowned at the readings. "This is unprecedented." She tapped rapidly on her medical tablet. "She's been poisoned with something I've never encountered before, some kind of adaptive toxin specifically targeting her genetic structure." One of the royal guards stepped forward, his armor gleaming under the harsh workshop lights. "Is there an antidote?" "It's not that simple." Dr. Davis's eyes narrowed at the readings. "The poison is binding to her cellular structure. We need—" She paused, rechecking the data. "We need a compatible donor for a complete bioenergetic transfer." Lucas, who had been trying to blend into the workshop wall, spoke up. What now?" "It's a process unique to her species," Dr. Davis explained. "They can exchange life force through intimate contact, but the donor must be genetically compatible or it could kill them both." The guard's posture stiffened. "Then we must begin testing immediately. I will contact the royal house." "No time," Dr. Davis cut in. "She has 36 hours at most. We need to test everyone on this station now." What followed was a blur of activity. Medical staff began scanning the growing crowd of onlookers. Lucas found himself herded into the line, his protests ignored. When the scanner passed over him, it emitted a shrill beep that froze everyone in place. Dr. Davis stared at her tablet in disbelief. This can't be right. She ran the scan again. The same beep. Mr. Kowalski, you're showing a 99.9% compatibility match. The Royal Guard's head snapped toward Lucas. Impossible. He's human. Mostly human, Dr. Davis corrected. Still studying the readings. There are some unusual markers in his genetic structure that I've never seen before, but the compatibility is undeniable. Lucas felt the blood drain from his face. What exactly does that mean? Before anyone could answer, Laria stirred on the medical gurney. Her golden eyes opened hazily, scanning the people around her. What's happening? Dr. Davis approached her cautiously. Your Highness, you've been poisoned. We found a compatible donor for the bioenergetic transfer, but then proceed immediately. Laria's voice was weak yet commanding. The donor is... Dr. Davis gestured toward Lucas. The princess followed her gesture, her eyes widening in horror. The mechanic? You must be joking. I'm actually the chief engineer, Lucas muttered, then wondered why that was a part he chose to object to. Laria attempted to sit up, but fell back with a grimace. There must be someone else. Anyone else. The compatibility readings are clear, Dr. Davis insisted. We're running out of time. The process needs to begin immediately. And what exactly does this process involve? Lucas asked, though he had a sinking feeling he already knew. Dr. Davis's professional demeanor cracked slightly. The transfer requires physical intimacy. The more direct the contact, the more effective the transfer. Lucas choked. You... Yes. Laria snapped, her violet skin darkening with what might have been a blush. We must mate, you primitive creature. The workshop fell into stunned silence. Lucas glanced around at the gathered medical staff and royal guards, suspecting this might be an elaborate prank, but the seriousness in their expressions told him otherwise. This is absurd, he finally managed. I can't just for the princess. Laria's golden eyes flashed. You think I want to be bound to a common mechanic? Again, chief engineer. Lucas corrected automatically, and nobody mentioned anything about being bound. Dr. Davis cleared her throat. Actually, the process creates a permanent biological connection. You'll be linked for life. Lucas and Laria exclaimed in unison. For life? Lucas stared at the screen, the weight of revelation settling over him like a crushing force. The data in front of him wasn't just about genetic compatibility. It was proof of a grand experiment, a deliberate manipulation spanning decades. His entire existence had been engineered. The thought made his stomach twist. His mother, Emily Kowalski, had been nothing more than a pawn, a test subject discarded when she threatened to expose the truth. The official records listed her death as an accident, but Lucas now knew better. They had killed her to keep their secret. They will pay for this, she said, her voice steady. Not just the minister. Every person who had a hand in this. The entire system that thought they could play gods. Lucas met her gaze, seeing not just a princess, but a woman willing to burn down an empire for justice. You go against your own people? He asked, his voice raw. My people, Laria said firmly, are those who stand for what's right, those who fight for love over control. She placed a hand over his, where their golden patterns shimmered together. My people are you. His breath hitched. In that moment, everything they had been through, the flight to the tunnels, the near-death escapes, the forced proximity that had become something more, crystallized into a singular truth. They weren't just victims of some ancient plan. They had broken free of it. We need to find the others, Lucas said, pushing past the grief and focusing on what came next. The other children they experimented on. We have to warn them. Laria nodded. We will. Her smile was fierce. But first we expose everything. We tear down the system that tried to shape our lives. Before Lucas could respond, the station's emergency lights flickered, and his wrist computer chimed again. A new alert scrolled across the screen. Unauthorized docking detected. Multiple ships breaching Omega. 9 security perimeter. Asterisk, asterisk. Laria straightened. Draven. Lucas exhaled sharply. And he brought friends. She reached for his hand. Then we'd better get moving. As they fled into the station's mechanical heart, pursued by an empire determined to control them, Lucas realized something. For the first time in his life, despite the chaos, despite the danger, he was exactly where he was meant to be. Not because of a plan, not because of genetics, because of choice. And that made all the difference. 1 month later, aboard their personal starship, the Engineer Star, a name Laria had chosen with obvious amusement, Lucas stood at the viewport, watching distant galaxies drift by. The golden patterns on his skin glowed softly, resonating with Laria's presence even before she entered the bridge. "The Council is still arguing about precedent," she announced, sliding her arms around him from behind. Their patterns merged automatically, creating swirling designs where they touched. "Apparently, we created quite the diplomatic challenge." "You mean a princess choosing a commoner isn't in the rulebook?" Lucas turned to face her, still amazed by how natural this felt. "I'm shocked." She smirked. "Former princess." "Right." He exhaled. "Your father must be thrilled." "Former father," she teased. Then, her voice turned serious. "The Council's offering us an official position as representatives of the new interspecies alliance." "Politicians." Lucas made a face. "Us." "More like symbols." She traced the golden patterns on his chest. "Living proof that real connections transcend everything they tried to use to keep us apart: biology, class, politics." He pulled her closer, feeling the warmth of her presence through their bond. "Speaking of biology," her golden eyes darkened. "How long until the next council session?" "Hours." He grinned. "Then I think the ship's engine needs some urgent maintenance." She laughed, pulling him into a kiss. "That," she murmured against his lips, "was terrible. You love it." "I love you." Their golden patterns pulsed brighter as they lost themselves in each other, no longer forced by politics or poison, choosing each other freely, with every touch, every moment, every heartbeat. Outside the viewport, stars streaked past, their ship carrying them toward whatever adventure awaited next. They had no idea what challenges the galaxy would throw at them, but they knew they'd face them together. The mechanic and the princess who had defied biology, tradition, and fate itself to rewrite their own story. A message to our listeners, asterisk. Did you just witness what we did? A simple repair job turned into the greatest love story in the galaxy. Let's be honest. Who didn't feel their heart race when Laria first stormed into Lucas' workshop? Who didn't hold their breath during their desperate escape through Omega-9's maintenance tunnels? And who didn't cheer when they chose each other, defying everyone who said it couldn't or shouldn't happen? But here's the thing. This isn't just a story about a mechanic and a princess. It's about choosing your own path, even when the entire galaxy tells you to stay in your place. It's about finding connection in the most unexpected places. And sometimes it means telling tradition to take a hike, because your heart knows better. While Lucas and Laria's story might seem to conclude here, in reality, their adventure is just beginning. An entire galaxy awaits them, filled with prejudices to dismantle, conspiracies to uncover, and a few assassination attempts to evade. Let's be honest, Draven doesn't strike us as the type to give up easily. Now, they must seek out the other hybrids, those like Lucas, scattered across different worlds by Project Starborn. So what do you say? Should we follow them on their next adventure? Should we witness what unfolds when our favorite chief engineer and his not-so-princessy princess tackle whatever challenges a galaxy throws their way? Perhaps a mysterious distress call from an uncharted system awaits. Maybe another conspiracy is brewing in the shadows. They could begin searching for the other hybrids, determined to liberate them from the grasp of those who engineered this twisted experiment. Or maybe they just want a quiet date night, though we all know how well quiet usually works out for these two. The choice is yours, just like every decision in this story. Let us hear your thoughts. Should their saga continue? Should they embark on a quest to dismantle a conspiracy that sought to control their fate? Something tells me Lucas and Laria have many more tales left to tell. After all, when is a mechanic fixing something ever marked in a story?